Mm, let's see. How do I know? Trying something new today. It says we're streaming here. I'm gonna hope we're streaming here. Welcome in. I'm your transformation guide. And we are diving into our second couch session. I thought I'd entertain this idea of the therapeutic session on the couch, right? Kind of that stereotypical vision of what it would be like in an office. Only I'm on the couch and in the chair. So we're kind of working through transformation from let's say my own judgmental lens, kind of as a metaphor and an archetype. I don't know, we can dive into the aspects of collective reading if that's the jargon you want to play with here. I figure today, in talking about transformation, human evolution, right, well, let's see. Okay, so I brought the Wonderland, and I have the Aquarian deck over here, and, well, we're just going to channel in information and kind of let it all flow through. We'll get to know each other in this space. I've been synthesizing a number of different projects, kind of consolidating things into, I don't know, should I call it its own essence? Its own ethers? Exploring new platforms like this one. New ways of streaming and reaching people and connecting and networking. Where do we want to start? We are discussing human evolution, right? And in that, we are taking the perspective of consciousness or shifting consciousness. I'm a big fan of cultivating conscious co-creative communities and culture. Spit it all out there, getting things into the collective conscious, elevating things, raising the awareness, shifting people's perspectives and focus on the lived human experience. Yeah, let's call it that. There's a number of different platforms too that we've explored this topic, whether it's through radio, live streaming through Facebook, YouTube videos. This is somewhat of a new direction, a new platform for me to go. But I'm being guided to go this direction. I'm leaning more into the quantum mechanical metaphysical world in terms of my integral practice and integral studies, leaning more into the creative expression through the arts. I'm a big fan of personality profiling, so in these spaces we'll introduce a number of different platforms. What I'm thinking of right now is the secret language of birthdays, and through that I am the week of prolific expression. So I'm going to embrace that. Now this space is kind of morphing out of Coffee with Kelsey. I have, I guess, a number of videos, maybe in this space and through Facebook, my Facebook page, K.Sweet. I guess just over the last couple of years, there might be some insights there for you as far as intuitive readings, tarot sessions. I try to keep things in that timeless realm. We'll talk about balancing things. I've got clams here. I also have this guy here. And I like tarot. I like these oracle decks. More so, I like using archetypes to tap into the human experience and using these archetypes and metaphors to explore the difficult aspects of the human condition, right? So that we can get to these more creative, playful spaces where Innovation and healing and advancement can occur. I teach innovation and creative behavior development and have a lot of ideas for bringing these things together. But we have to get through the conflicts and the turmoils and kind of bring balance into this before we can really dive into, dare I say, a lot of these theories and applications that I have when it comes to consciousness and creativity and this cultivation of the creative space. We'll get more into that kind of as we go. In this tarot deck specifically, I chose Alice in Wonderland because, one, it's my best friend's favorite thing. It's been a theme kind of throughout my life in regards to these explorations of the subconscious aspects. Alice herself goes through quite the radical transformation in this rabbit hole. And I like the analogy of the rabbit hole and going down the rabbit hole and exploring some of these phases and spaces when it comes to transformation. It's a complex subject, complex topic. There's a lot to work with in it, and it's something that everybody experiences, it's something that everybody goes through, but it also looks very different for people. It does and it doesn't. It's like fractal projections, right? Like light kind of coming through a prism. It can be a spectacle for the viewer, right? But it can also fragment and how I want to say, the shape shift and adjust. One of the things I do, I'll show you because I have an example. I have an example of it. Speaking of light fractals and all of those, part of interpreting energy fields, I've come up with a tool where I use chalk pastel to render the aura or the biofield and then do interpretations of that. And always have past, present, and future influences, right? But using, how do I want to call it? Synesthesia, basically, to interpret and encode information or decode information that allows us to get into this, dare I call it, like a transliminal space, and this space between and the interstices between what was and what will be as it is now. Let's look at what this card has to say, because we have a lot of options, opportunities, thoughts. We have a lot of things up on the shelf. We have things on the table. We have a lot of subjects to explore, topics to explore here, and I can't get it all out in one nutshell, so I am doing my best to be more consistent in this space, to show up in more ways, just to disseminate this information, because there's especially lately just a lot of I guess information I'm channeling, a lot of stuff that needs to come out. So let's get it out. Let's just get it out. Oysters in Alice in Wonderland. And a 10. And a 10, it's the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. And yes, absolutely, that is this space right now. Some cycle is coming to a close. It's a 10-year anniversary for me for, let's say, my master's capstone project and some of the advocacy work that I do. It's a 20-year anniversary of, let's say, a catalyzing event that has led to this type of work. What else? There's something about cycles as well. Like, it's almost my birthday, and it's coming into my 37th birthday, and there's something about 3s and 7s that I really like. I have 3s and 7s tattooed on me, 3777. There's a Wikipedia page, you can look it up. we'll maybe get into that at some point or another, but as far as transformations, markers, indicators of these changes, and the cat. I'm surrounded by animals and nature and life, and so I'm hoping that you're welcoming them into this space as much as I am. Okay, home and hearth. Building home, understanding what home is, transforming our concept of what home and community is, right? As a means to orient ourselves within the context of a community. That makes sense, right? Prosperity, riches, security, safety, and a long family history, inheritance, safety and humanity. One of the things I like to talk about as far as subjects go are safe spaces and creating safe spaces for expression. And it's difficult. It's a difficult topic to dive into. There are people who are okay with creating spaces that are not safe spaces for others. And I think in order to create safe spaces, we have to be open to what safety looks like to other people and adapt to that, to find that balance. So many people don't want to go down that road. They don't want to make the necessary adaptations. They want the environment to adapt to them. However, we must learn to adapt into our environments. If there's something like taking unnecessary risks or gambling, those issues will show up here. If there's a gamble involved, there will be a loss when it comes to family, when it comes to home, when it comes to security. I think if there's I don't want to call it a hole in your energetic field, but if there's a soft spot or a weak spot within that energetic field, somebody's going to come in and steal something and take something, maybe even on a physical level, take more precautions to lock things at the moment. Relieving financial burdens through some of these homes and securities, but perhaps through balancing different perspectives. It's going to look different, I think, to a lot of different people, kind of within this broader collective space in terms of how we go about that, because people relate to money and wealth differently. It serves a different form. It serves a different function. There are people, and I think more people than not, who put a higher value on the monetary things as a means of validating their existence and their well-being. And so there's an ethic that is lost. Ethics are very important. And kind of at the foundation of things here, doing things right, doing things from a space of clarity. But we're still in this realm of oysters. Archetypes. So if we're talking about archetypes and we're talking about words and the function of words and what words mean to us, then we must understand or come to an understanding of concepts and what concepts mean. So I guess through the lens of the concept of Alice in Wonderland, if we take a major character or a major player such as the oyster, here it represents suits, coins, pentacles, diamonds as well, implies possession along with pleasures and pains of them, balancing out pleasure and pain, the necessity of pain in order to know pleasure. That's a theme, I think, a recurring theme that comes up often is the contrasting necessity of pleasure and pain. We have this connotation in our current culture that pain is somehow negative, unless it's applied to something like weightlifting, no pain, no gain. Pain is also something that is felt in the brain. It is a perception in the brain. It's perceived by the brain. We have these receptors in our bodies, these nerves that send information and these impulses into our brains, where they register as information, where we then interpret the intensity or the function of such a thing. And this is where our belief systems come into play. This is where meditation and our mindset also are very malleable when it comes to the cultivation of our consciousness and creative consciousness. We can be creative in these spaces, but it's getting into that space, into that liminal space where things can be molded. My brain's going to the little bit of training that I did in psychokinesis and spoon bending, metal forming, worm forming, where you're taking metal responds to electricity, electrical impulses. The emotions are also these electrical impulses, and the metal will respond to that, to these vibrational aspects. And the intensity of your emotions will heat up the metal, will alter the particles or the molecular aspects of it, so that within this limited time window it is very flexible and very malleable. It can be bent. Things can be stuck to walls. Maybe at some point or another we can I'll demonstrate that. Stick a penny on the wall or stick a quarter on the wall for you or something. Not today. Let's stay on track. Let's stay focused here, because we are transitioning into a new age, the Aquarian age. And what does that mean? It can mean a number of things. We have love, we have judgment, right? We are going from that Piscean into the Aquarian, so that masculine I, me, mine, into the feminine we, into this sort of space, right? We're in that transitional liminal space where this, say, Piscean and this Aquarian are these opposing sides, that duality dynamic come together and meet in the middle, where things begin to shift. This is our transformation point. And so when we're talking about transformation from an archetypically extracted viewpoint, we're going to lean into fearing the consequences of a new project. Worry and embarrassment, looking into the infinite. There's that judgment. People want to judge things. One of the things I like to talk about in this space, if anybody has sat with me at this table, at this space, there's no judgment at my table. I'm going to leave judgment off the couch as well. We can explore what judgment is. We can explore the good aspects of judgment. We can explore the bad or the negative, the dark side of judgments as well, if necessary. But it can be both. It can be either. It can be Schrodinger's cat in the box, right? Until we look at it and we decide and we influence upon our environment, our conscious expression. How will we know what it actually is and what is being created, or what is being manifested out of that dream world, or what is being extracted from that morphic resonance field into the material realm? There's a lot of words in there, and there's a lot of jargon in there. We'll get to it. Maybe not here today, because we're trying to balance out our fears and our worries. People are afraid of transforming. They are worried about losing control, worried about not being able to predict what is happening in the future, afraid of their emotions. or they register that emotional wave, that energetic frequency, that electromagnetic intensity that is experienced as the heartbeat, right? That is I don't know, it's a visceral attunement many people aren't prepared to process. So somatic work is important. Somatic psychologies are important. Doing the somatic work or processing things outside of this conceptual realm, out of the mind and into the body, uniting everything through that spirit, that holistic mind, body, spirit. What else can we say about this? Let's look into it a little bit more, because there are vulnerabilities and expressions coming forward, leaving things behind, overcoming obstacles, getting through the emotional aspect of that. This is 8 hearts, 8 cups. Taking this infinite tension and worry and approaching it with love. For the world card shows up for us too. It's going to be a, it's like we got to get everybody on board. We've got to shift that, the value, I suppose, of connection. And people espouse love and the value of love, and they have for many, many generations and many, many decades. But again, power, control, these larger forces and dynamics at play that ultimately influence our current culture, for lack of a better understanding. Let's look at what these 8 hats are. 8 is an interesting number. Hats in this particular deck corresponds to cups, hearts, primarily with messages, travel, and the home, gifts, and contains all that is truly important. There's something about messages in this one as well. Messages, and so the message of love. What are you interpreting the messages as well? Again, getting into the nervous systems and understanding the visceral responses of the nervous system, the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic, right? That fear, fight, or flight mode, that survival mode versus the rest mode. But we're all forced kind of into the survival mode, into that fear and fight or flight, and it makes it very difficult to rest and relax, but it's motivating us to evolve, if anything. And there's an urgency, perhaps, with this one as well. Running away from the responsibility or friendship. This came up in a reading I did for somebody the other day, too, as far as avoiding those responsibilities. When we know something, we must be responsible for it, and something that I teach all of my art students is that about responsibility that comes from creative consciousness. And when you understand the powers that your creations have, maybe we'll detract there a bit and not use the word power, but when we understand how our vibrational output influences and impacts the environment around us, right? We then become responsible for what it is that we are no longer ignorant of, no longer naive of, but we have to learn something, and people don't want to learn, right? They don't want to have to take accountability for new ways of thinking, so they shirk these responsibilities. They slough them off. Like in regards to business, so many people don't want to work for themselves. They want to shirk those responsibilities and put them off to the boss and have somebody tell them what to do. You have to tell yourself what to do. Listen, I suppose if we are reflections of ourselves, then what is coming up for you within this conversation that is that insight as far as, I should do this right now. There's a feeling or a picture coming up. Let's go to leaving behind that which is best in a person, abandoning a plan or a goal, disillusionment, making a great matter of something that is really trivial, happiness, joy, feasting, striving for a goal. This is like turning the mountains into molehills. If you're not feeling that happiness, it's these trivial matters. We make these human experiences that we have so personal. We have this unconditional love concept that is permeating our society, where we unconditionally have to give of ourselves. There are no boundaries. We of ourselves don't have the capacity to make the decisions for ourselves. We have to do what other people want us to do because that is what love is. It seems like a disillusioned way of getting other people, or maybe perhaps provoking other people to do the emotional labor and emotional work for you in your relationships. Boosting up the egos of others while simultaneously demanding that they boost up yours as well. Sort of dissolving the ego and connecting to that spiritual aspects, maybe perhaps that the sun has here. This is a fun deck. I'm kind of looking at the Aquarian as well, because in this process of transformation where we're taking all of these difficulties and lessons learned, right, we're compiling them all into the toolkit. Yes, the transformation guide. We are going to talk about the toolkit, the cards, the divination tools, the tools that allow us to access the subconscious to get to the more primal truths of our beings. Yes, we can build the kit around them, and this is the beginning of it. I'm so excited about this adventure and how all of this is going to unfold. It's really the very, very beginning, and there have been, I suppose, others who have participating in or been witness to this journey in its many formations and its many forms and its most evolved form yet in this sun aspect, and it's reaching and striving for actualization and awareness. Let's see what this is. Okay, I'm going to do my best to be mindful of my time here, so we keep these couch sessions under an hour, kind of that 30 to 45 minute mark. So we'll begin to tie some of these concepts together and kind of give another stone on the pathway forward in this transformation, in this journey for you. You can reach out to me anytime for individual support, individual readings, guidance, we're in that kind of flexible space now where if there's something you really need or have been really whatever and need the resource, I don't know, for whatever reason, whatever that is to you, now is a really good opportunity to approach me with questions, let's say in an experimental way. Okay, let's talk about this one. Alice meets Humpty Dumpty, who sits on a wall, holding a banner of unknown origin. He has just given himself a compliment, and so is allowing Alice to shake his hand. The king has promised to bring around all the horses and all the men if Humpty Dumpty should fall from his perch. Let's see. Satisfaction, accomplishment, and success, love and friendship. There's that love again. Reveling in the pleasures of life, freedom from boredom, happiness, new or old friends, warmth, truth, artistic achievement. Is this what people are striving for in that community connection? That's what we want to shift into the Aquarian age, right? And getting out of these aspects of unhappiness, boredom, loneliness, broken relationships, delayed goals, uncertainties in the future. Belief systems really come into play here. Thoughts become things. If there's anything science is teaching us at this moment, it's we can shape how the future unfolds based off of these conversations that we're beginning to have. But at the same time, in the pattern unfolding and development, it's not really up to our control. This change and this transformation is happening around us whether or not we truly want it. And it's embracing that the Queen of Rods energy, that power of taking accountability and responsibility for the thoughts and the words and the actions, and detaching the ego from that space of unconditional love and needing that reciprocated to you, and getting into this space of detached compassion. Having compassion, but being able to detach yourself enough from the ego and personal outcomes and desires and controls to allow things to unfold as they are meant to unfold, and not as we want them to unfold. I guess I don't have my little booklet here for the Aquarian, and that's fine. If you're familiar with the Aquarian deck at all, you can also look up the cards. They can be very harsh in their interpretations. They look very soft. They look soft and beautiful and friendly, but they are very harsh and direct, which can be a bit jarring. It can be a bit unnerving if you are not expecting it. What does the world have to say for this Alice deck? Because she looks like she's hesitant or wandering or lost. Kind of walking around in the dark, but it's not dark, it's light. Alice stands in one of the squares that make up the Looking Glass world. Only a few steps remain in Alice's adventures, and then she becomes the White Queen. The symbolism is that of completion, of having the world put into proper order, of things going the way they should. There's an initiative phase, somebody who's going to come along and help you or initiate you into this next phase. Maybe that's part of what this transformation guide is as well, initiating you into to a much more evolved way of thinking and how you approach your personal relationships and how you approach your businesses and all of those things. There's room for growth and for transformation, expanding your understanding of how and why you are living and doing the things you are doing to deepen it. The goal to which all other cards have led, right? Perfection, Eden, fulfillment, the end of the path to wisdom, spirit and life everlasting, a pleasant outcome, in some cases, what might be if other warnings are obeyed. High magic. Anything falling short of those, or any shortcomings or any disappointments we have, we not perhaps in this lifetime going to attain that ideal state of human perfection, but if we're evolving, that's the goal, right? In our transluminous bodies, as we transition from the sapient world where we are affected by these material laws, these sapient laws, into these luminous laws, into these laws of light, literal light, vibrational aspects. Let's look at the pepper grinder here, and then we're going to start winding this couch session down. It's part of the work, it's part of the duty, and we want to strive for something more perfect and something more beautiful. Well, let's start by adjusting the selves. Let's take ourselves off of the shelf, off of the table, and allow ourselves to evolve into something brighter, better. You know, it's a feeling. There's this very primal, instinctual drive that is pulling, I believe, all life into this space of elevated attainment and expansion. It's quite beautiful. There's beauty in the pain as well. You have to shift your understanding of what that means and get out of that judgment space. And it's going to be difficult because I imagine as we begin to explore more about relationships and how people relate in these spaces, this is where people are going to trip up. This is where people are going to meet resistance. That's where some people are going to struggle to integrate some of these thoughts, concepts, and ideologies into their well-being, and that's fine. Not everybody is ready in this lifetime to get us there. We all have to take all the steps, all the necessary steps. Every microcosmic interaction has its macrocosmic interaction, right, to balance it out. I'm excited about this space. It would be interesting to see if, I don't know, I guess if we catch any fish with this net. Catching the clams. You know that part in Alice in Wonderland where you've got the walrus and the other guy, and they're going down the road, and they've got all these like little baby clams following. They're all doing their little like clam dance along the way. I'm like wanting to collect these little clams. We do our way down to, okay. Peppermills corresponds to staves, wands, or clubs. Theme of good intentions and good friends. It's also the suit of battle against very long odds and very heavy burdens. It is not necessarily a suit of violence. This is difficulty and these heavy burdens and people wanting to, how do I want to say, instigate reactions to validate things, because again, things aren't necessarily what they seem. Some of the most passive are the most manipulative, which lead to distortions in how we interpret what violence is, where we get these explosive reactions that are antagonized out of intentional distortion from external influences, albeit where it's people trying to affect your judgment through substances given to you in these spaces or in these coercive spaces as a means to try to take something, right? In these set up spaces. And so there's this reticence and hesitance again to get into this emotional expressive energy, because the ways in which we do it have to be filtered or interpreted or adjusted so that as they are received by others, they're not distorted. So that signal you're putting out there might look a little bit different or have to be coded in such a way where they can be reinterpreted or recoded on the other side without being interfered. I think you understand if it resonates at all, or if that part of it makes sense. You'll get it. I don't have to explain that part. That's fine. A man set apart, often a ruler, courage to face and contemplate the world, maybe having to stand on your own in these contemplations in order to readjust the magnetic fields as far as who and what and where is attracted to you, or vice versa. Great riches and magnificent stature not appreciated. Great sadness and monumental loss. So maybe there's a grieving or processing or just allowing that to if it's ending, it's ending. There's the funeral process, right? That's okay. I'm not gonna dive too far into that one in this one. Maybe we'll leave it open into the next session, or we'll dive maybe into that realm into the next session. In the meantime, there's this point of resting and needing to reflect on all of these difficult things that have been happening. The Wheel of Fortune shows up for us next because we're not too sure what's going to happen, but we have to be ready and adaptable for whatever is going to show up next. There's a discernment. That's fine. Okay. We'll talk maybe more about discerning energies and frequencies. How did I title this? Something along the lines of may and maybe not. I mean, what may be and what may not be. May and may not be. You just have to be okay kind of in that liminal space, and we'll rest in that space of uncertainty for the time being. That's fine. Do we have anything else here? I don't believe so. Thanks for joining me in this space. I'm going to do my best to get back here regularly. So we're doing a couple of these a week. I'm getting myself comfortable. I'm getting my technology lined up here as well. So bear with me if there's any technical issues or anything that needs to be worked out technically. This is my space to explore that as well. Kind of figure out what the best approach and best platform is for this sort of thing. Let's ground and release in this, and we'll kind of reset and recalibrate. We're going to work on recapitulating here too. I think that's a good idea. So any of the energy that has been distorted or any energy lost within this container, if there's any influences trying to jump into this container to influence the channel here, we'll recapitulate and solidify our sovereignty and ourselves in our own power so that we can take accountability for ourselves, for our changes, for our transformations, begin to make these conscious transformations into a creative collective future that is something that is sustainable for all. It's a reflection of our truest aspects of Mother Nature and gives perhaps hope into the evolutionary wisdom that comes from the intelligent species that is mankind. Homo-luminous or bust. I mean, we're gonna evolve to our best versions, whether we like it or not, one way or another. Thanks again for being in this space. Again, if you have any questions, reach out. I'll do my best to connect. It's meant to happen, it will happen in the time that it is meant to happen. Thank you so very, very much. See you next time.